Today we're painting some wintry illustrations, and I'm going to be chatting to you about reference photos too and how I use them. I think there are lots of questions and curiosities about references, so I'd love to share how I personally use them and how they can be part of your creative journey. So I'm using my usual palette of colours, which is yellow, magenta and cyan, plus white and Prussian blue. And for these cozy slippers, I'm mixing up a darker orange using yellow and magenta, plus a touch of cyan. My first layer is watery and thin, and I talk more about my layering process in my previous workshops, so definitely check those out. But this is ideal for building on gouache, going from thin to thick. Then I move on to the fluffy part of the slipper, and because I want to build a lot of texture and make that fluffiness or that fur look really dimensional, I have to start with a darker base. So I just mix in a touch of the dark orange with white and cover the whole fluffy part of the slipper. If I painted this part white to start off with, or closer to white, I wouldn't build up any dimension, and you'll see what I mean as we go along. Then I mix up a dark brown, which is the same process as the dark orange, but the ratios of the colours are a bit different. I'm adding more cyan and magenta to darken it. And remember, you don't need to have the exact shade that I'm mixing here. Just make sure there's a nice contrast between that first dark orange that you put down and this dark brown. This is going to start building out the shadows, which is going to help the illustration look dimensional. Now, this is where I really used references to help me understand where the shadows go and the level of contrast or the variety of values that I need to build out the dimensional illustration. So by looking at several reference photos of this style of slipper, I can see the range of colors that I need. I can also see where the shadows would naturally fall. Even though I didn't copy the exact position of these slippers from these references, or the exact detail from what I was seeing in those references, I was able to see the level of contrast between the shaded parts and the parts where the light was hitting. This is how I most like to use references now. When I first started out, I would meticulously copy either a photo I took of something or a reference photo I found online, because I thought that getting the exact position of the object, the exact colors I saw in the reference was what was going to make my illustration look good. But with time, I've actually realized that all I need to understand is the range of values I would find in the object. So the light versus dark, and the color palette loosely, because I don't even worry about getting the exact colors right, and sometimes I even change them, and where the light and shadow falls on the object. So I'm building out the fluffy part of the slipper by adding shadow to it, and also texture by allowing my brush to be nice and dry and making these small marks that give the impression of fluffy fur. And I'm gradually adding white to make it lighter. Then going in with the white, I pick out the highlights, and this is what I meant earlier, that to actually make this part look white or cream, the cream fur or the white fur, I needed to start out darker in order for us to see the white highlights on top. I add a darker brown to the shadows, and you can see how it starts to make the other colours stand out more because of the contrast. As gouache dries, the colour can shift and dark colours go lighter, so I keep layering until I get the contrast I want. I do the same with the fur. I see it needs a bit more contrast, and so I go in with a dark brown and make sure my brush is quite dry to add texture again. Here it is fully dry. You can see how much the colour has shifted as they go lighter when they dry, or at least dark colours in gouache go lighter, which is why I always say don't be afraid to push the contrast as much as possible, because you'll find that when it dries it colour shifts. Our next illustration is some hot chocolate, and I've looked at several inspiration references. You can find these on my Pinterest board that I've linked, and those are guiding me for what colours and values I'll need to be mixing up. I put down my first layer that is thin and watery and map out the base values that I see. From this I can build lighter and darker layers, but starting with more of the mid-tones is generally how I approach that first layer. Once that first layer is dry, I can begin to build, so I darken some of that hot chocolate with a darker brown, allowing for the layer underneath to still poke through so it looks like hot chocolate is swirling. I also let some of the white paper show through on this one, which helps with the really bright areas of the cream. You can take the elements you want from the references and switch them up. Maybe you want sprinkles, or you don't want to include the spoon, or maybe you want to have cream but you prefer a different mug colour. Take what you like from each reference and mix it up so you make your illustration your own. And it's okay if you only change one element, small element initially. Take it at your own pace. This is practice, and sometimes I still base my illustrations largely on whatever reference I'm using. The point is just try and move away from fully needing to use the reference perfectly, and do this at your own pace. I think the sooner you are able to move away from having to exactly copy what you're seeing in front of you, the quicker you'll be able to start being more creative with what you're illustrating. In these workshops, we're only doing, single object illustrations, and so there's not as much creative composition of the elements, but this is a first step in the pursuit of more creative composition. Perhaps you want to illustrate a perfect breakfast spread. Well, you don't need to find the exact image reference or even recreate the spread in real life to illustrate it. You can create a guide for yourself by looking up lots of single images of the different objects, which will inspire you on how to illustrate them. But you're the artist, so you can put things together how you want, and you can include certain elements or change them as well. And the more you do this, the more confident you'll get in doing it. I would start with seeing what you want to illustrate, maybe getting a few reference photos and modifying them slightly, like we're doing in these workshops, and just use your reference as a guide for light and shadow and color palette. But more than trying to perfectly copy it, try and maybe change an element or two. And this is a great first step in becoming confident in this. Anyway, as you're seeing here, I'm layering on some darker areas to deepen the dimension and make the colour pop more, and add some of that hot chocolate swirling movement to the cup. Adding sprinkles, because I love tiny details. I think they tie everything together, and I'm a bit of a maximalist when it comes to illustrating. Like, I don't skip out on the small details. With the white and not too diluted so it stays quite thick, I'm adding in those highlights that also brings everything together. I want to keep adding to that swirling illusion with the cream, so I glaze over some white with a really light hand and try not to go over the same area too many times so that the paint below isn't disturbed and the white stays crisp. Don't underestimate how the pressure you put on the brush is actually a big part as to whether your paint gets disturbed or reactivated and you get that kind of soupiness where the paint mixes together. So definitely the pressure of the strokes is a big one in being able to control the paint. Then I'm adding in deeper brown tones as I see how the gouache has dried lighter and I want some areas to deepen. And finally, I'm adding some white to add reflection highlights of the transparent mug. For a wintry fruit, I did this pomegranate. I start with magenta with a touch of yellow and map out that first layer where I'm just doing the base colours with the paint quite diluted and thin and watery. I know I've said this before, but this colour blocking method where you do a first layer of paint is supposed to look messy and flat. It's okay if the colours run into each other a bit. Remember that waiting for your first layer to fully dry and then building on the second layer is what will help with not disturbing that first layer and getting a soupy mess. But if you do have a soupy mess, that's okay. You can always step away, wait for it to fully dry and build the next layers with thicker paint and not as much water on the brush. In my previous workshop, I talked more about this approach. I'm using a bit of dark orange for the top and bottom of the pomegranate. Then with a dark magenta, which is magenta with a bit of cyan or Prussian blue, I'm starting to darken some of those outer areas of the pomegranate, the skin, the top and bottom. I'm doing the seed outlines with dark magenta and you'll see that they actually dry a lot lighter, so I go back in a few times to really pick out some of the darker areas. And this is that dance with gouache that I always mention. You have to sometimes keep going back because they keep drying lighter, and that's okay. It's the layering process. I leave some of the base layer poking through as the lighter bits of the seed, and I think this works really well when you start a bit lighter and then build shadows on top, because you can get that really crisp light color come through as well. See how drastically lighter those seed outlines have dried? I go back in with an even darker mix of that magenta, but I don't re-outline every seed because I want to have that variety of darker and lighter areas to make it look a bit more real and dimensional. Then with white, I'm adding in the dazzling highlights, which really helps bring the pomegranate to life. In looking back at my references, I see that I'm missing a yellowish tone that comes through on most pomegranates. So I go back in and add some strokes of yellow, which I think really brings it all together. Sometimes oversimplifying the colors works, and other times you really do need that extra mid-tone to give it a bit more dimension. And there you have our winter illustrations, which are making me feel all cozy and wintry, even though it's not my favorite season. And I'll see you in my next workshop.